kind of a different vibe for the vlog today, guys. You know, back here with another banger. You know what I'm saying, dude? Hell yeah, brother. Painting up Hellboy, and this is just a ton of fucking footage that I was able to have. This is cut down like a ton. I have like 6, 7, 8 hours of footage. So yeah, I'm just gonna kind of go over my process and everything like that. But first, I kind of want to talk about some stuff, some heavy stuff. Trigger warnings, I guess I'll put them on the screen too. But trigger warning for cancer specifically. So. But yeah, I hope y'all stick around, and it's a bit of a longer one, but this video means a lot for me, and it's for myself more than anybody else. So I remember the first time I watched Hellboy. I was probably like 9 years old, 8, 9, 10, and I just could not sleep for the life of me. I don't know what it was. Um, and I heard these big rumblings coming from the living room. And usually, when I was hearing something like that, it was because my parents were up watching a movie. And as a kid, I adore movies. I loved movies. They were one of my favorite things. And so I remember something got into me that night, and I got up and walked out to the living room. And I saw my dad sitting there, and he was watching this movie that looked crazy. And I walked up to him and I was like, hey, I can't sleep. Like, can I just sit out here and watch a movie with you, please? I've just been laying in bed awake for forever. And I'm like 8 or 9 or 10. So forever could have been 15, 20 minutes or like 2 hours. I had really no frame or sense of time back then when I was that young. And much to my surprise, my dad was like, sure. And I remember sitting down and asking him what we were watching. And he was like, "Oh, I'm watching this amazing movie called Hellboy, and you're probably a little too young for it, but don't tell your mom, and we can watch it." I was like, "Okay, sure." And I sat down on the couch, and I remember watching the opening scene. And if you've seen Guillermo del Toro's 2004 Hellboy, you know exactly what I'm talking about, with Rasputin opening the portal to wherever, and that guy getting sucked through the portal, and the freaking Nazi dude who's the wind up assassin killing people, and the grenades, and Professor Broom, and then Hellboy showing up as a little baby. And I was just like immediately enthralled by what I was seeing. I had never seen something so like stylized and just like bleeding with just cool energy like that. And me and my dad really enjoyed various, forms of media with one another. My dad really loved Samurai Jack. We would watch that all the time. So it's like I think my early childhood taste in and or my taste in stuff in general was just very informed by like extremely stylized people making very niche artistic stuff. And I think that's why I'm such a like weirdo freak when it comes to things, and I like weird stuff. Um and so anyways, I'm rambling, but basically all this is to say that Hellboy is probably the most important character to ever exist for me personally. Um I was watching the Mike Mignola documentary. I think it's on Amazon Prime Video. And it's like a big long interview with Mike Mignola and people around him, and just like about the creation of Hellboy. I think it's called like Mignola Draws Monsters, something like that. And Mike Mignola talks about how Hellboy is directly inspired by his dad because his dad would always come home from work being like a carpenter or whatever, and his dad was like beat up all the time because he worked with his hands, and his dad was just seemingly invincible, like nothing ever got his dad down. And so, there's just a lot of parallels there with me. I associate the character Hellboy with my dad a lot as well. I see my dad in Hellboy a lot, you know, with the temper and just like, always getting into something and uh, you know, violent is a bad word, but solves problems physically and is indestructible. And so the person I'm painting this Hellboy statue for is my dad. And this was the Christmas gift I made for him, and I really love it. So, if you've been paying attention at all to any of my social media and stuff like that, you'd know that my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer last summer, back in July, like right before my dad's birthday. Um, and that's like been pretty hard. Um, and I'm very thankful that I have the time I have with my dad now, and he's still here and he is fighting super hard and he's on chemo and I'm having to kind of watch him go through that, and it really sucks sometimes, but I'm doing my best to be supportive and help out my family however I can. I'm my dad's only son, and being raised the way I was raised in the area I was raised in the South, there's kind of a lot of, I wouldn't say expectations, but just like, societal norms of like, I don't know, I feel like responsible in a way. And, I know my dad might hear all these words that I'm saying, so, take everything with a grain of salt, I guess. But I've just had a really hard time with it. And especially at first, like the first couple of months after my dad's diagnosis, it was just like this weight on my shoulder. And I didn't really know what the fuck was going on or what was happening. And I was really just trying to stay positive for my family and for my dad because, the last thing people need when they're going through some shit is for you to be freaking out. Like, they need someone calm. So I was doing my best to be calm, but on the inside, I, was roiling, like just kind of crumbling, and it was not fun at all. And so I printed out this Hellboy, I think right after or right before the diagnosis, and I made it a goal to finish it by Christmas because I told my dad that I would do this Hellboy for him, and I've already painted two Hellboy figures for my dad, but nothing nearly at the scale of this one. And I painted like just a like maybe 75 millimeter scale Hellboy, um, and then I painted a bust of Abe Sapien for my dad as well. That's actually the profile picture for my painting Instagram and for the YouTube channel right now that you're watching this on. And so like me and my dad, even before all the shit happening, like I've been rocking with Hellboy since day one, basically. So it just means a lot to me and my dad, and like watching Hellboy always reminds me of my dad, and sometimes for good and sometimes for bad, like just there's a lot of baggage there, but like just with, everything going on with the diagnosis. And you know, I just I think I am keeping my hands busy is really good for me. And sorry, I'm trying to not get emotional talking about all this, but keeping my hands busy is the best thing for me. And that's how I keep myself calm and I don't get anxious about stuff or depressed about stuff. And I'm refusing to mourn my father while he's still alive. And I think setting the goal of finishing Hellboy by Christmas really encouraged me to get off my ass and well, I mean, I was on my ass the whole time I was painting him pretty much, but do something about it, and I really kind of poured a lot of that anxious, nervous, angry energy into this paint job. And I really pushed myself and I did techniques that I was not super comfortable with and at a scale that I'd never really done before. I've painted one other 1/12th scale miniature before, and it was like not my greatest work, but pretty good, So I think I just really pushed myself with this one, and I'm pretty proud of it. Or I'm not pretty. I'm very proud of it, and you'll see by the end of the video the final product. And I was able to give it to my dad on Christmas, and that meant a lot to me to meet my goal that I set for myself earlier this year. And it also meant a lot for me, and this is morbid as shit, but whatever. It meant a lot to me that I was able to get it to my dad because if you I don't know if you know anything about cancer, but pancreatic cancer is a fucking bastard. And it is extremely has an extremely high mortality rate. And you know the time with my dad is no longer promised, and it never was. But it's a real fucking stern wake up call, to just go over to your parents' house and your dad's like, yo, basically rolling the dice on this shit. Like, who knows, And well, not to air my dad's entire cancer journey on this little YouTube video, but he's doing he's throwing everything possible at this. And my dad's a huge fighter, and my dad has never taken a hit laying down, And again, back to Mignola talking about his dad being Hellboy is like, and if you've ever read any or seen any Hellboy anything, it's like no matter how hard Hellboy gets hit, he gets right back up and he hits back just as hard or harder. And he gets pissed off and he's stubborn, And my dad is very similar in a way. Like, I've never really seen him be hurt for a long period of time, and he could just kind of brush things off. And so now this is kind of the first time where I'm seeing my dad in a vulnerable state in a long time. And so, like, I just wanted to give my dad something that would, remind him like of his strength. And even with all the crap happening to his body with the chemo and his liver and the kidneys and his pancreas, obviously is just like a lot. And so he's not taking this sitting down. He's doing the craziest chemo regimen, and he is driving down to Houston and um getting experimental like clinical trials, surgeries and procedures done on himself. Um by real doctors and everything like that. It's not like snake oil bullshit, but he's doing everything he can. He's not quitting. And I think that is just the most Hellboy thing ever. He's not quitting. And I'm very content in the fact that my dad is not a quitter and that he is stubborn as shit and he's gonna fight this till it's done. And that's like the most Hellboy thing ever. So I feel like painting Hellboy kind of helped me channel that attitude as well. And I don't really know. I feel like I've been rambling for like 20 minutes about this shit, but I think to boil down everything I've said is enjoy the time you have with the people that are in your life and your loved ones and the people you call your family, and know that tomorrow is not promised with them, and you just take charge and love people, man. I was just very angry for a while, especially after the diagnosis. Just angry with the situation, angry with God, angry with doctors, and just kind of numb. And it's like that feeling you get when you get hit really hard. It's just like that, I got my bell rung. And I think diving into the hobby so much this past year. I mean, I've been an avid painter and kit batcher and 3D printer crazy person for like good, like, I've been painting for like 7 years, but actually, having expendable income to do the hobby and shit, like really more like 4. And, I think 2025 was the year that I really came into my own on my skill level and everything like that. Went to my first Adepticon, everything like that. So I'm extremely proud of my progress. And I think this Hellboy kind of really pushed me over the edge. So if you're watching this, thank you. And if you sat through my rambling, thank you. And to my dad, I love you. And I'm here for you. And I'll paint 10,000 more Hellboys for you, to support you and to spend time thinking about you. And no matter what happens with my dad, I'm not going to cry. No matter what happens with my dad, I will always have Hellboy, and I'll always have the memories of enjoying Hellboy with my father and being way too young to watch that movie and being terrified when Rasputin rose up out of a pool of blood as he was summoned back from hell or the underworld or whatever the fuck in that movie. And Samael, the seed of destruction. Just that crazy tongue, dude, with the tentacles, man. I love the sculpt of this mini. With the tentacles, because in my head it's just he just got done fighting Samael, and that's what the tentacle is. But, yeah, I always have Hellboy. And I'll always share that with my father, no matter what happens. And I think that's awesome, and I'm so lucky to have so many good memories associated with my dad, with Hellboy, and with many other things. You know, not just Hellboy, but I feel like Hellboy is just such a great personification of my dad and my relationship with my dad. So I'll get off my fucking soapbox and stop, you know, rambling into this microphone. But I hope you're enjoying the B roll of me painting, and I'm sure at some point in this video I have explained my process, or I will explain my process. So, um, here goes nothing. I love you, Dad. Take it easy.
Oh, yeah. There's the money shot, dude. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. Still got all the definition in the muscle. But now instead of reading like white, I get more color depth from the pink. So hopefully, whenever I paint him up more red, the top will read brighter, more vibrant, more saturation. That way, the underpainting isn't desaturated. In fact, it's saturated heavily. So it really shows the definition in the model too. Like, I don't know if y'all can see the vascularity in his chest muscles and stuff, but man, this camera probably doesn't do it justice. I'm gonna whip out my phone. All right, check this bad boy out. Yeah. This thing is huge, by the way. Like, there's the color forged spray cans aren't small. Like, there's a lot of them. Check out that detail, man. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Yeah. That Zenithal really shows off all of the striations and the muscle and everything. Dude, this sculpt is really good. And I squirted the can a little bit so that it looks like some blood splatter. Maybe I should hit that actually. Yeah, let me do that real quick. Perfect. I'm okay with that because I want that to read really gross. But yeah, let's see. There we go. We're focused. Very good. Very good. Very happy with it.
Trying to really paint in the lines here.
But perhaps we should to the glade.
I'm starting with a mixture of this matte black and ironclad gray because I don't want any true blacks on the model. I'm working from that saturation. So this ironclad gray has, you know, some color in it. So I'm gonna probably mix some maybe cool tones in the hair. So some slight blues, but I don't want it to read fully black. So hopefully that comes across on the camera. I know the color isn't really exact sometimes, so iPhones have a tendency to do a lot of color correction in post in their like little production pipeline. So, but it doesn't look true black here. But in comparison to the red, it's obviously dark. So, and I'm sorry if I'm out of focus. I'm just really trying to lock in. This is for my dad, so I'm wanting it to turn out as perfect as I'm able to make it. And I know that won't be completely perfect, but I'll be damned if I'm not gonna at least try. So. That's a support scar, actually. I just noticed that. That's so small, no one will ever notice.
Or looks up and says,
Alright, so I finished base coating the beard and hair and things. So now I'm going to pick out the eyes really quick, because if I fuck this up, I'll just cover it up right now before I do all the hard work. So I'm going to do some moonbeam yellow for the eyes, because Hellboy's eyes are canonically yellow. So I'm going to do that right now. Shaking this up really good. I think I'll probably do a white coat first, just so they really pop. But I'll probably use this ivory white. This will be underneath the yellow. So yeah, that's what I'm getting up to. But yeah, it's not 100% true black here. It's a mixture of black and gray, about 50-50, maybe leaning a little heavily more towards the black. But I didn't want true black because that would kind of tone down everything. So, but in the whole composition, it will read dark. And then that way I can build shadows in the hair, and it'll actually like read depth wise, hopefully. So. Okay, I'll just do a little bit of white and a little bit of yellow. Right next to each other. Perfect. All right. That is plenty of paint. And then I'll just do some mixing. So, clean brush. All right. Just thin this white out just a little bit. I don't want to add a bunch of water to this because I do want it relatively thicker. Mainly because it's going to go on a detailed piece. So let's see. I got a 3-0, a 2-0, and a 0. My 0 is a little messed up. My 3-0 is okay. My 2-0 is okay. I'll probably just use my 3-0 for now. This is just the undercoat. Just run some water through it. You don't want to spin because then it'll come undone. You just want to put that in there. So yeah, that'll be good. Now let's check. Yeah. Yeah, that's good enough. Okay. All right. Just a little bit more paint. Okay. All right. Let's lock in. His eyes are barely open as well, which is just making this even more difficult. But hey, it's okay. This is the smallest most precise brush I own. I'm pretty sure I don't have anything that would be better for this. So I'm just going to keep moving because I have to. It's really hard to get the camera to focus. I'm barely touching. Perfect. Cool. I'm not going to do pupils because I like in the Hellboy comics, he doesn't have pupils. No. And I'm lazy. No. I want it to be more comic Hellboy than movie Hellboy. Because it's kind of, the sculpt is loosely Ron Perlman, but also pretty comic-y proportions as well. So it's kind of its own thing. But yeah, I am happy with this so far. Next, I'm going to do the cigar base coats. And then after that, I am going to start highlighting the face a bit. Alright, just putting some gold on the sword here. It was looking a little too pinky bronze, so I'm hoping that just some really thin down Emperor's Gold will tint it more bronze, more gold bronze. So that's really all I'm doing, just barely. Super thin down metallic paint. Just some thin down gold. We'll let that one-ish coat dry. While I work on that, or while that's drying, I will work on the rosary around his wrist. I put some highlights on the rosary, so from a distance it looks great. But if you get really close up to it, you can just see its dots. But down there, it really pops. So I'm happy with it. So done with the hand, done with the head. For now, I'm gonna obviously do highlighting and stuff, like glazing on the skin. I'm just waiting till I'm done with most of the details. Now I'm going to dry brush this more warm red over the top here and catch the edges, because I really do want this to feel more deeper red than the rest of Hellboy. And I'll probably give the same treatment to the horns as well. So yeah, with this resplendent red, I'm just gonna kind of dry brush from the top, and then I might hit the highlights of it with like orange, something down here, but I don't want it to read pretty dark. So yeah, what I'm gonna do is hello. There we go. So here, dip that in my wet palette, get that nice and damp, wipe most of the dampness off, come into there, just kind of there. Yeah, that looks good. Really warming it up. That's the goal. And I'm getting that dry, dusty texture. Let me just kind of go for a second round. You're not seeing me wipe all this off, but perfect. More dusty. That's good enough for now. Okay. Now I'm going to do a hard thing. So I want this glowing effect in the wrist, these runes here. So I'm going to use oranges and white, maybe a yellow oil. I have these water mixable oils here. And so my idea is to thin it down really thin and to tint it so I get a glowing effect. So that's what I'm going to try. And I'm going to try it right freaking now, because no better time than the present. So what I'm going to do is use this side of it. Use crappier brushes on these. So I got water mixable white, water mixable yellow, water mixable orange, and then hopefully I can thin them down enough so that the capillary action will sink into these grooves here, and I'll just have to kind of touch and it'll spread out. That's the idea. Will it work? I don't know. I'm gonna try. See how when I do this, the paint is seeping into my cracks in my skin like that? I think I want it a little thinner. Maybe just a tad bit thinner. I'm barely adding water. So, I don't know if you can see that or not. But just a slight much more thin, and then just, yeah. That capillary action, that's what that's called. It's because the surface tension of the paint is so minute because it's super thin. So if I can take this really nice brush, and I really hope this doesn't mess this brush up too much, make sure it's nice and wet, and I just kind of sop that in. So let's test it, shall we? Just kind of go. Okay. Okay. A little bit more paint on the brush here. Yeah. Just like that. Fill in the crack. Okay. Okay. Not thin enough. More thin. This is so thin. Shit. It's all right. This is totally okay. Oh shit. Oh no, that's not good. Well, okay. Yeah, maybe I just do that. Well, it's kind of spreading more than I wanted it to, especially on the bottom. But I don't know if that's a bad thing. We'll see. I need this to dry and then I can wipe it off. Because that's the nice part about oils is I can come back with a sponge and clean it up. So it's not the complete end of the world if this is like everywhere. So I'm going to try it. I think it's a cool effect, so I'm going to try. Keep it going. So there we go. Hopefully that will glow. I could just come back over that with maybe a brown speed paint. Or not brown speed paint. A orange speed paint, maybe, or yellow. And not have to deal with oils again. But we'll see how it dries. Right, so I'm basically done with... I gotta wait for this oil paint to dry before I can do the glow effect. So now I'm going to move on to dry brushing various highlight tones onto the musculature. Now my buddy has kind of helped me determine where exactly those are gonna be, but I'm still gonna be a bit precise and use a smaller dry brush for them. And at the scale this model is, I can get away with dry brushing. If it was a smaller model, I would probably only exclusively glaze at the level of detail I'm going for, obviously. So if you're really not caring about the level of detail, like, and being hyper vigilant like me, because I'm fucking crazy, honestly, you would be fine just doing a normal dry brushing at a smaller scale. It's just since the scale of the model is so much, like, I'm going to kind of go for it. So yeah, let me see. I'm barely getting any tone there. And I will come back over this and tone it down. Okay, over there. I only swipe downward. Alright, I've got some dirtied resplendent red to a dirty paint water consistency glaze. And now I'm going to try to go back and glaze into the recesses of my musculature on Hellboy. So that'll be good. So yeah, that's the general gist. I'm just toning down those highlights here, so you can see the difference between that many coats and this many coats, right? So, and here I'm just gonna. Yeah, I have a little spot here, so I'm gonna just build up value. Once that dries, I'll even out the coat and all of that. But that's all I'm doing. And it's at this point where I went full try hard and stopped recording. So I did that dry brushing and then started glazing the chest like a madman. These are some progress pictures. And then, there's the post dry brushing here. And then you'll see me start working on the glow effect as well. So I glazing back and forth on the chest, and this right here is glazing on the face with oranges. And then here I glazed over with yellow and then orange in the Fist of Doom, and then I came back in and added some white so it looks really hot. I also darkened the red on the fist even more, like with the brown and red, to make the glow effect pop even more. That was a tip I got from my homie Josh Orkbutt. He was like, if you darken the area around the glow effect, it really sells the fact that it is glowing because the light would make it would make you perceive the space around the glowing darker because the light is what you're seeing, not the you're not seeing light bounce off of it. That's not how light works physically. So that was pretty fucking cool. But yeah. So that's it. That's all I've got for you today. If you stuck around and watched this long, you're an absolute trooper. And yeah, I don't know. Comment your favorite Hellboy. And I'm so sorry for like low key crying in the club earlier. I'm not sorry at all, but you know what I mean. So sorry if that got heavy there. I just kind of needed to put that in this video. So I had a really great time painting this, and I am very much happy with how I did, and I am very proud of the work, and I am glad I got it to my dad. So all in all, I think you know massive W in the chat for sure. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this really fucking long hobby vlog. So I think that's gonna be it for today. All right, catch you later.